All right, we are on YouTube Live. This is September the 5th, 2024. We are going to be talking about resentments. So welcome if you're finding us for the first time on this platform, YouTube Live. We fire up about 6:15, 6:30, and then we turn on the live mics here in a little bit. But through the show, it's a good way to interact with us and engage with us. You can post on with us. And, John, you made the comment that fall is here, I believe.
Yes.
Can you hear all of the...
Yeah,
that's
beginning
right.
fall.
I hear the moans and groans and wheezing of allergies.
Yeah, whining. You can have
whining.
Yes. I'm a major whiner today.
Yeah.
I'm a baby whiny.
You're Charlie Sheen said, winner.
Oh,
Okay, but you're a whiner.
So allergies got me a little bit this time, guys. Oh, man, this week's been rough with allergies. So,
I want to just say that you made it through that whole entire intro and have yet to say the name of this podcast.
Through a therapist's eyes.
You just kind of jumped into it, and I was like, I wonder if I should time him to see how long it takes him to say the name of the podcast.
Oh, this is going to be interesting, y'all. I'm resentful now of allergy season. I guess everything refuses to dry up because the sun goes away and the mold loves that.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah.
Also, ragweed has just blossomed into its own.
Also, it's fall because it took me over an hour to get here 2 days ago because of school traffic.
Brutal. That was there was a wreck on every road.
Yeah, it was awful in the Charlotte and surrounding areas.
All right, so we're gonna get ready to fire up here. The three questions that are going to be in your mind, hopefully through this show, is what past experiences or relationships do you still feel anger or bitterness toward? How have my resentments impacted mental health and emotional well-being? And what steps can I take to begin letting go of resentment and moving towards healing? I think those are provocative questions. Provocative questions for you to think about while we fire through a cool episode of Through a Therapist's Eyes on resentments. Through a therapist's eyes.
Yeah, now we're going to oversay it just so you know what you're listening to.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, Victoria.
Me?
Yeah, because you're resentful of others.
Am I?
You? No.
Maybe.
I was wondering where that was going,
I was
man.
a
He was
little
on you, man.
nervous,
He was on you.
If you're watching, you probably saw me like my deer in headlights. Like, where is he going with this?
Wow. You got a motley crew today, y'all.
Yeah, it's funny how when people say stuff like that, you instantly, your inner monologue just goes through like all the stuff that they could be talking about.
What did he do? What did he say?
It's like when someone says, I know what you did or something, and you're just like,
Victoria,
oh
I
my
know
gosh.
what you did last weekend.
right. And you're like,
God, he's there. He's in my head.
How did he find out?
All right, Neil, how close are we? All right, let's do this. Oh, let me get ready. Ready. Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes on September the 5th, 2024, when we are going to talk about resentments. This is a topic that I think affects most, if not all, of us. You out there who do not have resentments can tune out, but I'm pretty sure nobody turned the dial off on that one.
No, and you're going to give us a 5-star rating, too.
They will, John, because they want to please you and make sure that you are not upset. You are correct. Please
and they won't resent it.
They will not resent hitting the subscribe
And that John
button.
won't resent them for
That's
giving
more. And
I won't
less than
resent you.
5-star review.
Yeah.
This is where you get Through a Therapist's Eyes, insights from a group of therapists in your home and car, but not the delivery, Victoria, of therapy services in any way. Got the book out. December is coming up, actually. Think about your Christmas presents because a book on marriage would be greatly timed.
Yeah.
Just going to start pushing
This month
that.
is like years flying by.
Like way. I know.
Yes, exactly.
I don't
I
like it.
remember reading a book in June, and
That was 10 books ago.
and that was like 30 plus
30
books ago.
ago.
But I remember thinking the next book in the series doesn't come out until September 29th. And I remember thinking back in June, oh my gosh, that's like such a long time. And then now I'm like, oh my gosh, it's September. Like I have the countdown of like when this next
Okay,
book
you are
is
getting
coming out.
either way too comfortable or way too loose because I haven't even said. And Victoria Pendergrass is with
Oh,
us.
hi.
And Mr. Pope hanging out over there.
Oh, definitely.
This is like my third Coke today, so
Oh,
probably
wow.
that's why.
You are wired with no energy.
And no medication.
Listen to that, wired with no energy. Contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is how you contact us. Apple reviews are important. That is your part. If you like the content, hit subscribe, tell a friend. Really and truly help us out with that. This is the human emotional experience. Let's get it going. So, what past experiences or relationships do you feel anger or bitterness towards? How have my resentments impacted my mental and emotional well-being? And what steps can I take to begin letting go of resentment and moving toward healing? Now, the word I is you, the listener, you listening to this show, not I, Chris Gazdick, because I have plenty of work to do on my own resentments. Got a few. I'm working on letting go of them. But we're going to do a couple of current events first.
Yep.
All right, we have, first of all, yet another sad event. I actually have practiced my mental health this week by really tuning out. So I'm going to lean on you guys a little bit.
Right.
Because I know that we have...
You're not worried about our mental health.
Right.
Well,
So,
I can only do what I can do, John.
Yeah, I know.
For myself.
I know. You need to take care of yourself.
I have had a week where I am getting nothing but rest. In
But
the
what
evenings.
Chris is referring to is there was a recent school shooting in Georgia this week, right?
Correct.
Earlier this week.
Wednesday.
2 14-year-old kids were shot by a shooter,
Right.
who's also 14,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 teachers.
Yeah, with
And then there
other
was
casualties.
some other injuries.
9 casualties.
That's a lot of people.
4
man.
casualties, 9
Not-
wounded,
Well,
right?
they're called casualties if they
Oh,
get
gotcha,
shot.
okay.
But 9 wounded.
Yeah.
Okay.
9 wounded, 4 dead, and it's an absolutely, it's just, it's torturous. You know,
It is.
it's really beyond sad, and you know, we get so egocentric in America to think that this only happens in America when we talk about it. This is a around the world kind of an endeavor. We just don't hear about it in the States as quite as much. And
Well,
fairness,
it
it
high
happens
numbers in the
in
States.
fairness is absolutely. Thank you, Victoria, because it does seem to happen more, statistically speaking, in the United States for whatever reasons.
And the other aspect of this was that the FBI had interviewed his father and him a year earlier when he was 13.
That's a unique component that I did not know about.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, I didn't know
what
that either.
happened? Why were because he was flagged?
So this is what I want to talk about, John. Mental health is a hugely important facet of all of these events. It is a standard thing that we do to screen suicidality and homicidality. That's our job. Okay? When these events occur, we end up having the same conversations
All the time.
all the time. And it's maddening. And I'm kind of getting to the point of being over it. Because we need to make people have deeper understandings of what our job is in assessing homicidal and suicidal ideation. We probably should do a whole show on it,
Probably.
right?
I think
Because-
so. We do that in our assessments
Constantly.
Right.
Constantly.
But here's the thing. Mental health is brought up in these conversations in a damning way towards mental health patients, explaining how dangerous they are and threatening of a person's they are. It is stereotypical, it is mythical, it is not even accurate.
Blaming the victim.
It's blaming the victim, John. Right, you're right. And the thing of it is when somebody is engaged in mental health treatment, we can all say with very clear eyes, very straight-faced, even though allergies got me in a brain fog, I can be very precise and clear to say that that is not typically when people are engaged in dangerous behavior because they're engaged in treatment. That's true.
Right.
Now, I've lost a client or two from suicide, and it's after they were engaged with treatment and not actively, I should say, engaged. Mental health people are not dangerous.
Well, yeah.
They're not a dangerous population because the population generally is pretty much all of us with mental health issues.
Now,
We're gonna
yeah.
talk about
Well,
resentments.
and there could be some arguments too about people with mental health issues. You could argue that some people that are shooters don't have the typical um, uh, mental health issues.
Fair.
Well, and
they
they're-
have personality disorders, which is not considered technically a mental illness.
Personality disorders are narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial
Antisocial.
personality disorder. Those are and borderline personality disorder. Those are the typical sort of aggression ones where we have to really dangerously assess or carefully assess dangerousness. You know, in homicidal ideation.
So basically, what you're saying is the people who carry out these acts are the ones who have struggles with mental health, but are not.
Likely
Keyword is not
engaged
in
active treatment.
Yeah.
Or they would
Yeah.
refuse it.
Or
They
they refuse
refuse
it.
That's what we see. So when we're talking about mental health care in these conversations, we need to talk about availability. We need to talk about funding. We need to talk about outreach. We need to talk about actual treatment care and what that is. We need to talk about medicinal treatment. And we need to talk about assessment.
Right.
But that's the most difficult piece, okay? Here's the other segment that I wanted to say with this events. We are held to an impossible standard as a clinician when we're told we have to assess homicidal pre-action to moving to action. There are not great scientific research availability of any protocol that I am aware of that you are to search for that will designate somebody as higher risk for acting their thoughts out.
So
Against other people specifically is what we're referring to.
Correct. Homicidal ideation.
volitional. There's always that's the factor. That's the unknown factor is even if a person in all the signs says homicidal, the fact is that there's a volitional aspect to this. That person may decide not to do it. I mean, there's always that ability to choose.
In fact, that is highly most likely when a mental health person lays eyes on somebody. We're engaged with somebody, they're engaged in talking in treatment, and they're very likely to not act out on any of the impulses that they have. Highly unlikely volitionally to engage in harming somebody else. This is a very, very rare reality that somebody follows through on any kind of homicidal ideation, contrary to the numbers and perception that you have with the news talking about this. This is highly, highly rare compared to people that have homicidal ideation and are treated, and volitionally so. Their own exploration of what's going on with them. The thing that we need to talk about is what do we do with mental health professionals embedding in police? How do we get mental health professionals in schools to be able to have an outlet more readily available? What do we do with training people that are engaging in children and their care, daycare workers even? Because this kid's 14 years old, John. Like, dude, we need early intervention. What do we do for poverty? What do we do for the risk factors?
But some schools, the argument is, some schools have school counselors who are in the way that schools are set up. They often don't get to do counseling.
It's brand new, John. Yeah.
They don't
Oh,
do.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then
It is rare nowadays that a school counselor gets to lead groups, gets to do individual therapy with kids, gets to engage in those different types of interventions with students. Most of the time, they're in school counselors are in charge of 504s, which is a type of
jargon speak.
yeah,
What is
jargon
it?
speaking.
Yeah, stay broad for those around
But
the
anyways,
world as well.
Yeah, but they have 504. They're in charge of like
Paperwork for disabilities.
paperwork. They're a lot of times they're in charge of testing, or they help out with testing. Sometimes they have to cover a class. Sometimes they have to
They're
do
more
all these things.
Junior principals.
Yeah, or like assistant principal.
Principals.
I don't know, but then they don't have. And as someone who has worked in specifically in elementary school and for more time, and I've been in a middle school and a high school student for short periods of times. Like, they don't have time. Like, even in high school, a lot of the school counselors are in charge of making schedules for all students.
Okay. The point is, they're not doing counseling.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
It's a new embedded thing that we do have some progressive changes where clinicians are in schools. We do have different units. We have 911 now being, what is it?
988.
988. So that's the conversation I want to have, guys.
But also, what I did prior to coming here is school-based therapy, which here in Gaston County, which is where we're located, third-party agencies have contracts with Gaston County schools where they implement and have a school-based therapist there at a specific school to only do mental health therapy. Like, we're not doing, when I was a school-based therapist, I did not do anything else except for C students.
Yeah. So there's some things that are out there. There's some new things that are in place. My point, before I get on another rant, is I want to absolutely, because I'm tired of this, guys. I mean, we need
Yeah.
actions. We need things in place. We don't need the same daggum dialogue that doesn't get anything changed. We need to have conversations about what we're going to put in place, what we're going to fund, what we're going to provide, what we're going to actually prevent, so that we can get in front of these events.
Neil, didn't we have a discussion about school-based shootings
Yeah, we did.
before in
We did.
Uvalde? We've had it before.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we need to keep on being louder about it.
Yeah.
Because it's being talked about in the wrong way when these events happen.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
I'm going to make that bold statement. These are conversations about mental health in the wrong way. It's in a blaming way, and it's in a shaming way. It's horribly so. We're talking about taking people's civil liberties away very preventatively, and I'm telling you, it's a dangerous precedent.
And what about all the kids and the children, the teenagers who have, and teachers and staff who have been negatively impacted, and their mental health is now
Dramatically
jeopardized,
hurt.
and developing PTSD, just
Yeah.
anxiety, depression.
We need to get in front of these things, and we need to talk to the people that know how to do them, and that's not police.
Well, and I think that just...
All right.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
Yeah, I feel like we need to get off this soon. so
Okay,
you got
but
the
just
last
real
word.
quick, I think I also want to point out, because I mentioned it before we went on air, that this is not because John mentioned that the FBI talked to him the shooter a year before, and this is not necessarily their fault that they did not stop this from happening, and that goes into the lack of preventative assessments to be able to say, this person is for sure going to carry out something versus this person isn't going to carry out something.
You can't have, quote unquote, using this term in our state's politics, in our country's politics nowadays. You cannot have, witch hunts.
Mm-hmm.
Trump loves to use the word witch hunts in our world, or two-tier justice systems. We can't have people being grabbed and civil liberties taken because somebody somewhere thinks they're a bad person and will take action. That's dangerous. It's dangerous because you'll just round up people randomly that for no reason a large percentage of the time. That's the challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot of inner working gears within gears that's moving here, because we're talking.
Love the way you put that.
Yeah, we're talking about fundamental societal changes, cultural changes.
Yeah.
And
And then interpersonal changes.
Interpersonal changes, and people making responsible choices. And I think that's one of the areas that, and then say, how do we accomplish that?
I would love to see a national standard mental health class.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Like a standard high
can
school,
we not talk
middle school
about
class.
ideas and real functional things that we can do, John?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to get...
Anyways, yeah, let's
I'm-
move
I'm-
on.
yeah,
or we'll make a
I-
whole episode about this.
Okay.
Excuse
But
me.
on the good note, I got my energy a little bit here
Good.
going. That's a good thing. All right, a cooler current event item that I think is important that I really wanted to talk to you guys about also. There's about 5 states in our union. I wonder what we do around the world, but y'all around the world, this is getting interesting because 5 states in the United States
Virginia
have banned cell phones in schools. And I love it. Okay?
Virginia,
Love it. Virginia's one of them.
one of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
I have mixed feelings.
let me see if I can get. I know where you're going, Victoria.
Are you
I
sure?
think I know where you're going, and I'm gonna say you're gonna have to deal with that problem.
What is it?
We'll come there in a moment. Who else has got it? I want to play a game. Florida's one.
Florida's
Okay.
one.
Virginia's one. Florida one. You got the other one?
No, I don't.
Ooh.
I have no
I
idea.
want to say it's somewhere. Michigan.
Michigan.
Michigan's one, I think.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's interesting.
California's one also. I think.
California. Yes.
California's
yes.
one. I got it right.
Newsom.
No, Newsom got this done.
Right.
I'm surprised. It's a very bipartisan issue because we're really, really figuring out the damning effects that phones have on anxiety and small young minds.
Inability to concentrate.
They're not
focus.
dialed into the coursework.
Right.
Now, at these schools that are banning cell phones, you know what they're doing?
What?
They're playing Twister. They're having conversations at lunch with like real people. And you know what they do during these contacts? It's amazing. They make eye contact, John. Right? This is a good thing.
One of my clients, who is a teacher, he teaches 6th grade, and he is, and this is not a school prohibition, but in his class, and he's backed up by the principal, is that he has everybody put their phones in a marked bag. Each kid gets their own bag, and they put it in at the beginning of class, and they take it out.
Love it.
Yeah. So
I'll remind you that these youngsters are really beginning to figure out that they don't need nor want these cell phones. I had a dad that told me when his kid came back from the 3-week, 18-day event where he slept over like a REAP camp or something. I don't know. And he asked the kid what the best thing was. You remember, John, what the kid said?
no.
They took
Yeah,
our phones
phones
away
away,
right in the first
yeah.
day.
Oh, I do remember.
And the
this.
kid loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
They loved it.
Okay,
So,
so
Victoria, this is all good in my view.
Okay.
What's your trouble?
my trouble is.
Or do you want me to tell you what I think your
Yeah,
trouble
you
is?
first tell me what you think it is for me.
You think you're going to be losing your child or not able to contact your child or not be able to get access to your child to do crisis management when people are hired, professionals, engaged that you trust to take care of your kids. That's what we do with people in schools. Am I right or am I right?
Ish.
Ooh,
Ish.
how am I off?
My worry is that, and I'm going to connect it to the first current event that
We need to
talked
wrap
about.
this up.
I know. But my worry is, say my kid is in school, and I know this is probably my anxiety talking, but my kid's in school.
Noted.
And a shooter does come into his school.
Yeah.
Now he has no way of contacting trying to contact the police. He has no way of, look, I'm going to cry. He has no way of contacting me to let me know that, like, what's going on and that he loves me for, like, the last time before he could potentially die.
Bogus.
Like,
Bogus.
that is
One more time, John.
bogus.
How is this bogus?
Okay,
Go.
it's bogus because having lived so many years ago, we didn't have that, and yet at the same time, there were shootings. Okay,
Right.
This is not a new phenomenon.
Is publicized, not as much, maybe, unfortunately, but there was a time in which people were going postal. But now they have, for kids, they have these watches that
On
they can
YouTube
have.
TV, you'll see that YouTube Live, you'll
I have
see
an
that his
Apple
watch is
Watch,
up.
yeah.
Okay, they have watches. And you know, some of these folks can actually use these watches to be able to do emergencies
Yeah.
Right.
and do that. And you
But
can
it's
say,
through connecting with your phone. So if
no,
you can't connect,
no. It is actually have a little cellular
See, mine,
device in
mine
here.
doesn't have cellular.
You can get one because if
We can mass produce these, Victoria, in a
So
a
day.
lot cheaper.
What? So
lot
then now
cheaper.
the issue is going to be kid has a smartwatch.
Great,
That
and
they
it doesn't-
they use the
that
same.
doesn't
They
do-
do the same thing with on the cell phone.
It's a heck of a lot harder to text on that.
That doesn't do any harm to their mental health.
Yeah.
The reality of it is, Victoria, I'm going to join John and be strong on this. Speaking to all you parents out there that have the same concerns, I am a parent as well, and I understand deeply the fear that we have about such things. But it is fear, and you
But
have to
media
deal.
has engendered
the
that,
fear.
stoked the fear,
For
and
sure.
made it so
Yeah.
much worse.
For sure. You do
Okay.
not need to know where your child is 24
I'm not
hours a
saying
day.
I need to know where
you do
my
not
child
need to
is.
know where your child is when
But I need to
people
know
are
that he's
responsible for
safe.
them.
Okay.
You can't know that they're safe. If
Okay.
you get a call at 12:45 that a shot has happened and your son tells you that I am safe and I love you, at 12:47 you don't know if that is going to be the case. Are you going to check at 12:48, 12:49, 12:50 and 12:51? No, it's
Probably.
not realistic. This is an emotional experience that people are having out of fear that's driving very dangerous behavior for our kids.
Feelings
so
are
here-
not facts.
Yes.
Right,
Here
John.
are the states that have enacted actual legislation regarding cell phones in school: Florida, Indiana, Louisiana, South Carolina.
I love it.
That's
Good
it.
look up.
I think the new one is California and Virginia.
No, it
So-
says California likely to limit cell phone usage across state in 2026.
Okay, so they haven't done it yet. I was
Yeah.
wrong. So here's the thing. Let's get off of this. But I
Yeah,
think
sorry.
that there is very positive movement on a lot of fronts. If we pay attention, we work together, we really do have human emotional experiences. And guys, I'm sorry for the energy if we've pissed anybody off, but I want people to be thinking. And I'm tired of having the same conversation, dadgummit. I want to have a different conversation, more productive, and gets in front of these problems that we have. All right, let's go to
Move on.
resentments. Resentments.
I resent that.
We might have to make this a two-parter.
No, we're going to fire through this
Okay.
and we'll bring it up and talk about it again because how do you manage these things are something that we do most every day. You have had experiences in relationships, you listening to the show, that you still feel anger about or bitterness. I'm willing to bet. I want you to think about those experiences as we talk today. You have resentments that impact you. In AA, they talk about resentments hurt the person harboring the resentment. They do not hurt the person you are resenting. They may not even know you hold that resentment. And then steps that you can do to really let go and to move forward with healing. These are the things we want to talk about. So, John, what the heck are resentments, man?
Well, it's not just simple envy, which is I want this.
You asked me that earlier
Right.
today, didn't
Well,
you?
I
you mean that, or
did
what-
because I think we have to establish that envy is maybe a simpler form of resentment.
Yeah.
But you don't resent the person having that. You want what that person has.
when
but-
you're envious.
when you're
or
envious,
jealous.
but you don't want the other person to have what they have.
That's a good distinction.
In other words, you want them to not have it. You don't want them to succeed. You don't want them to
Wow, that sounds
do
harsh.
Yes, it is.
But that's what it
harsh.
is.
But you're holding it, and it's almost like a grudge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really thought of that level of ugliness as you keep going further
Okay.
because I think you got more,
Well,
right?
no. I resemble that remark, but resentment is something where you let it get a hold of you so much that you get stuck and you're not able. And so it's a form of unforgiveness, not being able to forgive. It's because that person may have done something that was horrible to you, but instead of being able to say, okay,
Move
drop it or
on.
process it, move on, go on, you let it fester.
You're keeping hate,
Right.
hurt, fear, various very rough feelings. in
What
your
does
heart.
it do? It isolates you.
Mhm.
Okay, and you push people away, and so you become your disposition sours, your outlook in life.
This is real rough stuff. Complex, often
would- yeah.
long-lasting feelings of anger or bitterness towards someone or something, usually resulting from a perceived wrong.
You internalize it, and so much so that your blood pressure goes up, even
So you're
your
having
cholesterol.
physiological.
Yeah, even like your
side
cholesterol,
effects.
it can the cortisol levels go up. You're unable to sleep. You're unable to, and then you say it's a cycle, And so people don't want to be around you because all they
Yeah,
hear.
they have too much built up resentment. I don't want to hang around them.
It is a slippery slope, John, and I think you're doing a good job of really nailing the depth of it.
You see, by letting me know 3 hours before,
Like, then he couldn't resent you for
I can't-
putting this topic on him last minute.
John's taking shots today, man.
yeah, I don't
Well, and
resent
I
it.
think the thing is almost, I can bet you that almost every single client we have, we address some form of resentment at some point in time.
Wow, that's a bold statement. Say that again.
That almost every client we have, we address resentment at least some point in time with I would say like 99%. I mean, it may not be the reason that they came into therapy, but it comes up at least at some point.
I don't know if I'm going 100%, but
Well,
I would
mean,
say
there's
like
exceptions.
in the
would be-
90s.
close.
In the
Pretty
90s.
close.
Yeah. I mean-
because I think a lot of times people, and we may get to this, but people don't realize that they hold on to resentment or that they
Correct.
have resentment towards things until they bring it up in therapy or with someone else. And I'm like, well, it kind of sounds like you have some resentment towards this side of thing.
and
they're
their
like,
response is,
they're like, oh,
really? No, do I?
yeah.
Maybe. Holy crap.
And then you kind of
Yeah.
see the light bulb go off above their
Right.
head, and they're like, okay, it's clicking.
And then you know what happens next is they begin to become aware of their behavior. Because John, you started to lay out like you're actually wishing ill will towards a person when you have resentments. You want them to fail. You want them to hurt. Misery loves company. I feel like I've been wronged, and I want you to hurt for the way that I feel. Like it's rough.
A good example was I had a client who was a mother who her with a grown son, and he was killed in an accident which was entirely preventable, and it was due to inattention by the driver. He was crushed.
Yeah.
She held on to the anger and grief of that so long that it was making her so sick. She was physically sick. She actually suffered what is called the broken heart syndrome. It's a real thing.
That
Oh,
is
yeah,
a real
is
thing.
a real thing.
You're right. And she was near death.
Wow.
Because she
Tears-
was holding on to so much resentment.
Resentment.
Wow.
That
and
is
so,
a lot.
And she had to process through that over a period of months where she started to heal again.
Wow.
But she damaged her heart as a result of that.
It's real.
I mean,
I have another really good example. I'm very confident he wouldn't mind me telling the story. There was a friend of mine. He was an older gentleman that I respected, and we formed a friendship. And he was very much into church circles, and he told me this story of the old church that he was at. Now, he's been in our church like forever, so this is going back. I'm willing to bet maybe 2 decades is my guess, if not more, because he was an older gentleman. And like I said, he's been in our church for a long time. So he told this story of hurts that he endured at a church long ago by another church member. And it was unresolved, never dealt with. And years later, a few years ago now, he saw this gentleman that he had resentments towards, and he made a decision to deal with it that day. And he went up to him and said his name and, connected with him and, said, I really need to apologize to you. I really need to share with you that I've been holding on to stuff for so long this whole time. And as he's engaging this letting go process, he described his whole body was just releasing all of this energy, and he's just weeping openly, and all of this is coming out, all at once, because he didn't even know all of that was in there. He just knew that he needed to say something to this guy. Like, Victoria, to your point, what makes me most nervous about all the things that we do working with people is when we're working with people that have emotions and don't know that they have those emotions. They get embedded into your spirit. They get into your subconscious. You think that you compartmentalize them away.
They
and you
silo
do.
it.
They get siloed and suppressed, and even sometimes not even remembered here, okay? That's called repression. So we do all of these things and then don't even know that it's affecting us, and that's why people are shocked when we say,
Yeah. Oh, hey, you look like you're carrying some resentment.
oh boy, wow, I had no idea. So young therapists learn from that, teach clients, help them identify what they're not identifying.
I would say a lot of times it ends up becoming like a teaching moment. Of
Yes. So common
all
causes are
things.
betrayal in relationships. You know, man, that hurts.
all kinds of relationships. So
Friendships,
romantic, platonic,
right?
co-workers,
Family.
family, friends.
How many family resentments do you think are out there? I love that laugh, John. I found myself using it. Unresolved conflicts, unmet expectations. We'll talk about expectations. Be careful about them. When you perceive that you've been unjustified or holding on to past wrongs without those resolutions. These are damning. These hurt.
Yeah.
They really, really, your client, John, man, almost death.
Yeah.
I mean, that's dramatic, but
Yeah, I mean,
think
that's a
real.
little extreme, but yeah, it can happen.
okay.
Crazy.
How does this affect us? There are actual physiological effects, John, that you started talking about. You know, anxiety, depression, chronic stress. Let's just stop there. Like,
Yeah.
Victoria,
Yeah.
I think you're right. I've never thought of that.
What?
What percentage of our clients probably have an unresolved resentment? I mean,
Well,
we
they're
see
human.
anxiety.
They're human.
We see depression.
Yeah.
And they're-
So, but then that's the thing is they come to us. Oh my gosh, I'm having all this anxiety. Oh my gosh, I'm having all this chronic stress or all this depression.
My
But then
marriage
when-
sucks.
But then when you dig in deeper, you like. I'm not saying all the time, but I
Usually.
would say that there's a good portion of that it's because they're holding on and carrying this some form of resentment towards their partner, towards their spouse, towards their friend, towards their job, towards whatever.
The body remembers that, and so you can see the stress.
Yep.
You can see it in the tension in the
Yeah.
yeah. So sometimes PTSD manifests itself like that.
It's
There's,
visible. Yeah, I think you-
Vanderkolk talked about the body keeps score. When
Yeah.
he was talking
I have
about.
that book.
Who is Vanderkolk?
I have a client who's borrowing that book from
He's
me.
he's a Dutch guy, but he was is he a psychiatrist or a psychologist?
Nah, don't quite. I don't know.
Okay, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it
He's
matters to
very-
him.
Yeah, it does to him. But the point of it is that trauma that you receive in childhood, for example, or you get bullied and incessantly, or you basically just kind of internalize it, and it goes to certain areas of your body. Basically, you're tense all the time, and so you start to hunch over, or you are
You have chest
you
pain.
chest pains, digestive problems.
I
that
like
sort
to
of
think
thing.
of this as energy, John.
Headaches.
I like to dumb it down, and my brain works better that way. There are a lot of physical realities, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, when you feel energy about something, that should indicate it to you. You may feel energy in your head. You just called that a headache. You may feel energy in your heart. You just called that high blood pressure
Chest
or your
pain, yeah.
circulatory chest pressure.
Yeah, I feel it in my head, top of my head.
You know what I tend to do? I tend to hunch my shoulders up,
Yep.
right? And I learned this when I was a young clinician. My supervisor taught me that when I was whining about lower back pain, and I don't know if he knew this. I'm sure he observed it. He was on point. He had me pegged because he's like, if you drop your shoulders, you'll notice a difference. And I'll be darned, if I'm stressed out, I'll noticeably drop my shoulders like an inch and a half,
mindfulness
Right.
And your
exercise.
back feels better.
and my back feels way better.
Well, and again, what the Vanderkolk was talking about was that there's the PTSD in his case, chronic stress becomes so overwhelming, and so he works with people to be able to process through that so that they can let go of that stress out of their bodies.
That's a big phrase, letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did he work with people? He just kind of did he make this a sort of his
Yeah,
strong awareness or
Yeah.
whatever?
that's right.
Have you ever
Because I'm honestly not familiar with him.
I
I'll
was
be,
like,
I'll
have you
be
ever
honest.
read the book?
I have not, Victoria.
Interesting. It's
Do you think lesser of me now?
No, well, I'm interested because it was a required reading for grad school for us.
Interesting,
Yeah.
really? How recent is this?
Well, it
guy?
wasn't technically the whole book, but it
20
was like
years.
pieces of the book
20
were
years.
required.
He wrote it
In
at
our
the
trauma class.
1990s.
I was gonna say, it's a pretty old book.
Yeah, it's 30
Gotcha.
years.
Yeah.
30 years. But if
It has a nice blue cover with like this really funky like
But-
Impressive.
person on it.
but FOA is another one that works in that area as well with trauma and stress. And that's one of the areas that people don't think they have the ability to do this, and so treatment would be to process
The ability to do what?
and see, to face their stress, their hurt, their trauma, to let go of resentments, to let go of what happened to them, or their guilt or shame in the form of PTSD.
I'm going to make a statement to you guys.
Go for it.
I feel like of all of the things, I really believe in teaching and taking a teaching model in what it is that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this before. I've never said it out loud or outside of my head. I'm curious. So I'm really curious what you guys will say about this, to be honest with you. Because I really feel like one of the things I do well, just a self-compliment, is make complicated things sort of seem much more simple and digestible and understandable. And I find that really is empowering for people that I work with. But I have always struggled to a certain extent of having a really good way of describing this letting go thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard to even describe.
And especially if you don't know how to do it, or you've never done it.
Right.
So, I mean, so part of that might be teaching mindfulness.
Well, we're going to
and
have a
so
whole
on.
section at the end of things that we do to let go
Oh,
of
okay.
resentments. But I'm just sort of wetting your whistle for that in the idea that, like, this is really hard to understand. And I feel like
Yeah.
our clients, people struggle to really wrap their arms around what it is when we say, I want to let go. Like,
Right.
Let's just set that up a little bit, and we'll work with that here
Right.
towards the end,
Mm-hmm.
because do y'all find it hard to describe too?
Yes, and especially if you had yourself a difficult time learning how to let go.
Oh, yeah.
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 Absolutely.
I mean, when
Okay.
somebody says let go and let God, which we say in the religious circles,
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like,
What does
okay,
that
but then
mean?
what does that even mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, what does that even mean?
Are people really able, all of us, we live in the Bible Belt,
Uh-huh.
big, strong Christians, I'm a big Christian, all this, whatever. Are you really able to let go and let God? Do you let God take control of stuff? I think Christians struggle with that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
tick people off there again.
And I think that's because of what you're saying. Like, how do you just, like, how do you teach it sometimes? How do you describe it? How do you, like, your pastor, preacher, priest, whatever, standing up in front of you, or your friend or family member saying, well, just let go, let God. I mean, it's on pillows and everything. But,
Yeah.
like,
It's on pillows.
but, like, what does that even look like? What does that mean? What do I have to do in order to let go? And
So let's-
I tell stories, and
Right.
part of that is scripturally, and that's part of the thing is that, for example, Elijah, getting esoteric, because a lot of people don't know that story anymore. They used to, is that he defeated the prophets of Baal, and they were, and basically he feared for his life because he had to run away from King Ahab, who was having really had it out for him. And it was only until he was exhausted, totally spent, and he could no longer rely on what he thought was his own strength,
Can't even stand up.
that he was able to let go.
Right.
And then that's when he had no defenses, and that's when God was able to speak to him, or the angel of the Lord at that time.
Right.
And but so it's a process, I think.
Surrender.
Surrender.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it also does mean giving up control.
Well, Victoria, let me go to
Okay,
that
yeah,
section.
we can.
Look at this list, okay?
Why is it hard for people to let go?
feeling justified.
Yeah.
If you feel that you have a sense of justice, that I'm justified, I
In
will
my
hold on to
feelings.
this resentment. Fear is a hugely motivating force.
My
And
whole
fear-
cell phone thing.
And fears, right, and fears of being hurt again will lock you down into a resentment state. A lack of resolution or closure. This could be a marriage or a friendship. You have a conflict that you never got to talk to this
We
person
can't fix
about.
it. He's not going to come back.
Well, and I think that's some. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Feeling a need to be right. Humans want to be right. We're fearful of being wrong. That can lock you down.
Oh.
Okay?
My husband would say that I always have to be right.
He would say that about Victoria. Trying to control things that we cannot control.
Ding, 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 ding.
Biggin.
Serenity prayer.
A fear of change. Again, a fear. Poor self-esteem I had in my brainstorm. Because when you're really not feeling good about yourself, you can't be effective in most other things relating to other people, and forgiving them is going to be very difficult. So did I miss anything? Pretty
Well, no, I was
decent
gonna
list.
say
What
when
makes
you were
this so
saying,
hard?
When you were gonna say lack of resolution or closure, literally every single breakup that that couples go through, where you don't have the opportunity to ask those questions to get the closure for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then it's 10 years have passed and you're still can't let it go because you haven't quote unquote gotten the closure.
And 10
from
years is
that
not an
person.
exaggeration.
Yeah,
No.
heck, I'm happily married, and I still think about, I wonder kind of what led to that thing that happened,
Years ago.
years ago.
Yeah. Literally, people, this is so important because what we're talking about with high blood pressure, tension, and sleep problems that you pointed out, John, and barriers to emotional intimacy and tearing trust down. These are some of the other impacts that this has. A lack of personal growth. This really impacts you. And if you have any level of chronicity with this, that means you've lived 27 years like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that do to a person?
Weighs you down over time.
Really?
Because then it's not the thing that I think to remember is it's not, oh my gosh, words are hard. It's not, jeez. It's probably not the only thing that you're holding resentment towards. So it's you hold on to this one resentment thing
Good
that
point.
happened 27 years ago. Well, then 3 years after that, this other thing happened that weighs you down even more. And then 2 years after that, this other thing happened. And then 5 years after that, this other thing happened.
Guess what now?
Cumulative.
And so then now,
Guess what now? I don't trust anybody.
right. Or
Or I'm all alone, John.
yeah, I have my walls are as high as
It's
skyscrapers.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. And so then I think it's not just that you're carrying this one thing that happened 27 years ago. You're carrying that one thing plus the countless other things that you are holding on to or that have happened to you over the last 27 years. And now you're the humpback of Notre Dame, walking because you
Speaking-
can't stand up straight because you're holding on to all this crap that you can't deal with.
I mean, Victoria, you are on fire right now.
Pilgrim's Progress, written over 300 and some years ago by John Bunyan, is the story that Victoria just told.
Oh, the
So yeah, so
That's the
and
first
then
thing that came to my
Dumas,
brain.
yeah, I'm doing Hunchback of Notre Dame. Actually, the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
Just
We have
so it's
lots
in-
of satire about this.
Yeah, a lot of literature talks about this, and so if you can't go to a therapist, read a book, read a good book, Victoria.
Yeah, don't read the books I read.
Yeah. So because
Can I just pause us all
that's
for a second?
bibliotherapy.
For a lack of energetic group, I feel like we're going crazy.
Yeah.
Man, what is going on? Neil, did you put something in our drinks? What did you
Yeah.
do, bro? His eyes just got wide open behind
Yeah.
the curtains. He's drugged us today. Let's get to the good part.
Yeah.
And let's spend a good bit of time on this notion of how do we handle this? How do we let go? How do we
let
operate
Go, let God.
to let go and let God? because I think that's a really important component. This is really hard to do.
So these are strategies of letting go.
It really impacts you. How do we do this?
So to take it out of the realm of being a hackneyed phrase, how do we make it real?
So, first of all, a quick little list on, overcoming a resentment. You've got to be self-aware. Again, you can't overcome this if you don't know you're harboring it.
Example I used from earlier.
Right. It's impossible.
Yeah.
How do you let go of something you don't know you're holding on to? So you have to be really, really careful. And a safe bet is, if you're listening to this, you can sit there and say right now in your car, okay, you know what? Probably so. Guilty as charged. Now, what am I guilty of resenting? What, whom, when did I develop some sort of energy about somebody? And all you have to do is think of their name. Think of their name. Think of some interactions that you've had and see what kind of energy you have. Because if you notice your blood pressure going up, your cortisol level raising, your adrenaline going, your face turning red, guess what you probably got, John?
You got resentment.
Big fat one.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Every time you go, you're about to go visit that certain family member.
You get that energy.
Yeah, your blood
You
pressure
feel it.
rises. You
You
start
notice.
sweating. You start getting anxious.
You're
you
feeling
start,
dread.
Yeah. You're like,
That's a sign. Like you
pay
do,
attention to that.
you do have these things, and you have to become aware. And then we're going to talk about what you do when you become aware. But they're there. Recognizing that they're there is super important.
So that means like empathy and understanding.
Okay, go. What is that?
So like trying to understand the other person's perspective or point of view, or like approaching the situation from a neutral standpoint. You're avoiding taking things personally. We literally just did a whole podcast episode on empathy.
And taking things personally.
Empathy and understanding. It's the age of Aquarius.
John's breaks out on song if you're
So
listening to
Is
us
it
for
a
the
full
first
moon
time.
tonight?
I don't know. Something's going on. John.
yeah, no, it's
Something's
just
going on.
it's
something's
the age of
going on.
Aquarius when the moon is in the seventh house.
I'm checking the moon for today.
Good
But
old
yeah,
fashioned
so
forgiveness,
just boundaries.
setting them, holding them.
Any client of mine knows that they're probably sick of the word boundaries coming out of my mouth because we talk about them
Boundaries.
all the time.
Look,
All the
two
time.
main ones that I really feel like to go a long way is, first of all, that idea of really not taking things personally. You need a high self-esteem.
You need humor.
Humor.
Self-effacing humor.
That is a wonderful tool, John. I didn't even have it on my list anywhere. Beast mode you're in right there with that one. Because it's huge. If you can learn to laugh at yourself, you don't take things personally, you relax on things, man, you're going to be so much more light of spirit, right? And the other one is expectations that we've talked about on the show. That if you do not come to expectations properly, you are doomed
It's long-term norms.
to develop resentments. And that is either agreements that you make with the person or persons or long-term norms. You're right.
Which we've talked relentlessly about on
We have.
previous podcast episodes.
Pay attention to that because you will get yourself into an unforgiveness state. And the other person doesn't even know that they have to meet an expectation because there was no agreement. And you're going to hold them
Talk
accountable
about it.
to it for the next 10 years. Like, that's not
That's
fun.
like if I resent my husband for not taking out the trash, but I never communicated to him that I would like for him to take out the trash.
Mind reading.
Huh?
Mind reading.
Yeah, I know.
Or you think that you've communicated and you haven't done it effectively because you only said it once 7.5 years
and
ago.
he had his headphones on while he was playing a video game, so he wasn't even listening to me, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and then I'm like, but I told you the one time. And he's like, no, you didn't. Like,
Look, take accountability. When you notice you've got energy going on about something is hurting you, or you've been holding on to something and you become aware of it, take accountability for that. Do what my friend did and go to that person. And you may find an equally valuable release of energy. And then you feel peace.
What do you do when you have a client that actually progresses further than you've already progressed?
Probably happens all the time.
Yeah, I was about to say, I probably get surpassed.
I love it.
All
They
the time.
surpass
Oh,
you.
yeah.
I love
Absolutely.
it.
Oh,
We-
yeah, no.
I love
yeah.
it.
John, that's why I say we.
I don't
figure-
resent it.
I don't resent it either. That's why I say we figure this out together.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to figure these things out isolated alone, and resentments do. You're right, John.
Right.
Hold us isolated. So I think that happens all the time, and people say things that I learned from in therapy. I mean, it's a bonus of the job.
Also, it's not a full moon; it's a waxing crescent. So
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with
Oh,
this.
you looked it
I
up.
looked it up. Next full moon isn't until the 17th.
Blue moon.
Neil did it, man. Neil's got this stuff in our water.
So now we're going to move
So,
on to
strategies.
strategies of letting go.
How do we deal with this, guys?
Mindfulness, my favorite thing.
It's
Mindfulness
always.
and meditation.
Why is that your favorite thing?
Well, I mean, like, heck, I end every single session of mine with a deep breath.
Really?
Sometimes, yes. Now, I do have some specific clients who have told me that they don't like it, so we don't do it.
Okay.
And usually I try to inquire why they don't like it, because usually there's a reason. But yeah, basically all of my clients know every single session we end with a deep breath. And sometimes I'm like, do we need to take another deep breath? And they'll look at me and they'll go, yeah. And so then we sit and we take another deep breath.
Recover a little bit more.
And I do it with them too, because sometimes like therapy's a lot and we need to kind of like ground ourselves a little bit before we go back out into the world for the rest of the day.
I love that.
And so, yeah, feel free
That's
to
nice
take it
that
if you
you
want
do.
to.
I'm in.
But anyways, outside of my therapy sessions, mindfulness and meditation are going to be great for focusing on the here and now, focusing on the present, focusing on like where we're feeling things in our bodies, which is kind of what you've been talking about, like the energies. Am I feeling that every time I go see this cousin? Am I feeling like chest pains? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling stressed? So on and so forth.
I can't improve on that. I
Okay,
can't.
great. Look, I'm
can't.
gonna pat myself.
It's a pretty
That is
freaking
like a good compliment.
That's a pretty freaking good answer, John.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, I think she was very thorough.
I mean, for
It's
real.
one of my favorite things.
Yeah. These
also-
are a few of our favorite things.
Yeah. We also
Yeah.
have things like journaling, which is another one of my favorites.
Okay. The other thing that I would like to add on to that, and I haven't gotten that far down, but
I'm
is
only on
you
the second one.
you rehearse the forgiveness and the letting go.
Practice.
Practice.
Okay.
Because practice makes progress. Practice does not make
This is
perfection.
another really good and important point, John.
Yeah.
Dramatic pause, because you're touching on something, but I want to take it a little bit of a different
Okay.
bend. That really has a lot of misperception wrapped around this. There is a belief that if I actually become self-aware and I have the internal resiliency to deal with this, and I acknowledge that I have a resentment, and then I even go so far as to take an action, and maybe I make amends, or I forgive, or I have a conversation, or I do this mindfulness, or I do journaling, whatever it might be, and we'll have more that we're listing here. Is that a one and done?
Absolutely not.
No. The fact of the matter is, you grab back onto your resentments when you let a resentment go sometimes, or you only partially let go. This is a multiple time kind of thing.
It's a process.
It is a
It's
process.
lifelong, and I like to think of it as like an upward spiral. And in other words,
It doesn't really stop.
it doesn't really stop. But so you'll have other events that remind you of a past event, and
You have to
then
do it
you'll
again.
have to do it all over again. That's not a bad thing.
Not all over again. I don't want to put it that way, because people will hear that and they'll be like, oh, well, that sucks. This is never ending. No, you get to add to. You get to
You
join
grow.
with. You get to grow with. It's
Well, I
stronger
mean, it's
and
this-
stronger and stronger.
It's the same reason why I literally have a thing in
Well,
my office.
I don't want to jump off John. I
Okay.
want to
No. I would have been able to clarify that. No, I don't resent any of that.
But, sorry, no, you keep going. I'm sorry.
No, the thing is that it's something that you give yourself grace upon grace upon grace, and
Yep.
you are able to do this, and that you feel like, and you feel like you can't make any progress. But the reality is, if you use some self-deprecating humor, or you stand outside of yourself a little bit, you can see that you have made progress. and that you've grown.
Well, and
Even if it's a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Because the first time that you do this, you're going to be clumsy. The first time that you really work towards working something out with somebody, it's going to be awkward.
first pancake
You're
roll.
going to have great trouble with, feeling comfortable. This may not feel good at first, but the payoffs are tremendous. What's the first pancake rule?
Which I've talked about the first pancake rule
Remind
before
us.
on the podcast, but the first pancake rule is with this expectation that your first pancake is never right. It's never perfectly round. It's all messed up. You burn it. You don't cook it right. It's a mess.
But you
right?
can eat it.
But you can still eat it. And you improve each time you make it. So we give ourselves the first pancake rule to allow ourselves to have that grace to know that like we're probably going to mess up the first time we try something new or the first time we attempt to do something, which is again what I was trying to say earlier. Well, I have that sign in my office that says strive for progress, not perfection, because we're not trying to be perfect here. It's not a one and done. It is like you've said, a progressive
Building.
thing.
Adler was one of the
we like
original
Adler.
fathers. We do. But he said, act as if. In other words, live into that thought or that higher attitude
Of what it is that you want.
what it is that you want, and you will grow into it.
So
it's not-
prophecy works that
Right.
way too.
Right. So if it works negatively, it also works positively.
Positively.
Right. I love this.
So we also got things like, you want me to just go through?
You got more ideas?
Are these
No.
are yours?
No, I was just going to read the list.
Oh, okay. She wants.
So we got.
We're just
yeah.
talking.
Okay.
Well, we talked about journaling. We've got therapy, which we've obviously talked about relentlessly today. Practicing gratitude, communication. I will say effective communication rather than just plain old communication.
Yelling
Now,
and screaming.
Well, yeah, I
expletives
could
isn't
punch a
probably
hole in this
helpful.
wall, and that's going to
Stop.
communicate some things to you, but that's not very effective. Conflict resolution, prioritizing self and self-care. Talk about that a lot.
We do. I like self-care.
Putting ourselves first sometimes. It's okay to be selfish occasionally. Relaxation techniques, which kind of hints back
It's
to like the
mindfulness.
mindfulness. Connecting with others. Your ne-
Community.
Yeah, community. Slowing down. I think that's an important one.
Slow down.
Like,
You're moving
we don't
too
have to
fast.
be this
You got to
whole-
make the morning last.
What he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. Well, we live in this world where it's like go, 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 go all the time. And it's sometimes okay to like press pause, take a step back, and like slow down.
Reckless abandon is
Yeah.
not usually a good option.
Yeah.
Impulsivity is not usually a good option. Going with your gut feelings when it's based on hurt, fears, and angers is not usually a good reaction.
Now,
Yeah.
some people, granted, might have more difficulty with the impulse control. Let's say they are someone that has been gifted with ADHD or ADD. Okay.
Victoria is gifted. She raises her hand. Indeed.
Yeah. So
I feel like one of the big things with this in all of these pieces really relates around fear. You know,
I would agree.
what was it, Kennedy, right? Like we it's so ironic. We get so driven by fear. We get so wrecked by fear. We get so stuck by fear. We get so
mean-
numb by fear. And you know,
the
the statement is, we have no fear but fear itself.
that's Roosevelt.
Roosevelt, Teddy
Right.
Roosevelt. That's right. I said
It was
Teddy
Franklin.
Franklin Roosevelt. I have allergies, John. Thanks
No,
for,
I'm sorry. I wasn't
thanks for-
trying to correct you.
thanks for saving me on that one.
No. They were. Yeah. Yeah. You said Kennedy, Roosevelt, Democrats.
We have
So-
no fear but fear
Fear
itself. There is nothing to fear. And our fears definitely drive these instances. So I feel like if we can attack the fears that we have, we will realize that what's been plaguing us with this unforgiveness or this situation or this person, there's just how would you feel if you replaced fear with confidence? How would you feel if you replaced fear with agency or empowerment or replaced fear with resiliency?
I might not have as
I
many
know
clients.
I can handle this situation coming up tomorrow. I have the ability. I am enough. These are These are powerful statements.
Positive affirmations.
Right? You've heard of that
Perfect
before.
love casteth out all fear. That was scripture. So, love.
Love.
In other
All
words,
you
fill
need
the.
is love.
Thank you. It fills the void. So replace the fear with love.
And that doesn't mean passivity.
No.
No.
That doesn't mean doormat.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean do-gooder and not as ever standing up. We're
Yeah.
not talking about losing assertiveness.
Yeah.
Loving
It's
is
kind of-
action.
We're not being a
packed,
pushover.
So it's a muscular love.
right?
Yeah.
Strength, resiliency,
Right.
right? Absolutely. But you said something that's interesting. You used a word there, and you're using the word replace.
Oh, okay. I was like, you used a lot of words.
I'm keying in on the word replace. So it's interesting that these states of resentments are because of unresolved conflicts, or you feel justified in your anger that you've been unjustly treated or wronged in some way, and you just hang on to that. Well, if you acknowledge I have negative energy, that's about me. I've identified it might be about this person or situation. You can think back at your memories, literally, the way that you remember that event or person. And you can examine that in your frontal cortex. We have abstract thinking ability. And we can look at those long-term memories and literally reframe. You can rewrite your history.
Yes, that's the whole point of Viktor Frankl existential logotherapy. That is, jargon time.
What a moment!
Okay,
What is that, John?
In other words, you can re-examine your life and those activities, and you can say, henceforth, in this memory, I'm not in denial. I see things as they really are, and I'm able to reframe it, reconceptualize it, and reinterpret it, and give meaning. And
These are powerful statements. Say them again. Can you?
yeah, I can't. You know that. You
Just
know me.
rewind the podcast and listen again.
You don't get a redo. You can't change your life. You can't change the events, but you re-examine this
correct.
and you re-understand. This is one of the reasons why I like the title of my book. Re-understanding your marriage and becoming your best as a spouse. That's the subtitle. Re-understanding your
Perspective.
emotions and becoming your best self. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You're digging into things that you've assumed. You're digging into things that you've just allowed to stay stuck, and re-examining literally what it means to you, what happened to you, and that's beautiful to watch someone go
Yeah.
through.
Well, you know what they say about assuming.
Yeah,
It
you want
makes
to do the word.
Yeah, it
You
makes
really
it-
do, don't
yeah,
you?
It makes an ass out of you and
Okay.
me.
There you go, Victoria. A few other things to add. Creating a vision. I think you mentioned slowing down, being mindful of how you talk to people,
Yeah.
how you touch, how you yell, your voice tone, being gracious. You said, John. I mean, there's a lot of facets to this, and
For
it's
sure.
still hard to understand letting go. And I think it might be hardest because you don't know that you need to. If you hear anything today, I think really I want to encourage you to become more self-aware and take actions to give yourself a break.
Isn't that the greatest adventure?
Right?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Go further with that.
Well, some people try. The great story is everybody, they go on a journey. But the greatest journey, I mean, I want to go to places. I want to get out of this town because it's a one-horse town. There's no future. Well, the reality is, at least in my mind now, looking back after 71 years, is that the greatest adventure is that internal, inward journey where one gets an opportunity to grow and make relationships, and you can do it here and now in the present. And that's a gift. I'm better at it than I used to be. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm on that journey.
You're on the way.
I'm on the way.
John, that is a beautiful way to take us out. I think I really just want to stop there. Well
Yeah.
said. Listen,
Ditto.
be good to yourself. Let go. Be careful about how this hurts you, because you can live a different way if you would want to, as John just taught us. So take care, stay well.